Good evening. Coach Gore here. Woo! Mooresville Rip Fest Diving Club. Temperature 77 degrees today here at the indoor pool, so it is a little bit chilly. But what I wanted to address today briefly is the entry phase, and that's where the actual ripping occurs. Now, if you don't know why we call the entry a rip entry, it's because of the sound that it makes. You take a piece of paper and you rip it. That is a rip sound, and usually that is followed with as least or as little of splash as possible. But there are some different factors that also go into play when you're trying to rip and trying to have a clean entry. There is a difference. You can rip without a clean entry. Coach Winger used to always ask me when he'd watch me in college, "How are you ripping on your belly?" And I'd say, "I don't know. You tell me." 2.5 pike. Oops. Head takeoff wet short. And then bellies. So either way, the biggest thing that you want to make sure is that you have big flat palms parallel to the water. Big flat palms parallel to the water. I got some nice ones, and that gave me some pretty incredible rip. And to thank my higher power for those. Now, when you have that, remember your elbows have to be locked out as well. Now that grab on that hand, depending on your wrist flexibility, the further back you go, the better. If you can get that wrist to the point where it can flex and you can get your palms parallel to the water. When we're grabbing those hands, notice how I have that thumb tucked in, because when I'm grabbing, I want that thumb tucked in and I want my hands opening, okay? Not cupping, opening that palm. So we start that nice flat palm, and then we get as tight as we can with that hand. Now, depending on your shoulder width and the structure, right here, your muscle, your build, this fit right here is very important as well. When I was in college, I was thicker, not necessarily wider, so everything fit really, really nice and tight from here up, and that's super important for ripping. If you're not locked out a foot above the water, you're probably not going to be ripping. So, next thing is that head tilt. We have to have the head tilt with the body in position. That means the lower back. So those flat hands, locked out, head tilt. All right? We've talked about these concepts before in there, being able to see that thumb tucked in. Now we have to talk about what happens on contact. That's the position you have to have before contacting the water. Now, what is happening as we make contact? All right? Once we have that head tilted, that neutral plus position, and the palms parallel to the water and flat, then we move into the impact split. The impact split is a push-pull action. Push-pull action. Go back to the hand grab. Okay? I'm going to be pushing my lead arm while I'm pulling that grab hand. Okay? It is a push-pull. Push-pull. So that is that action that was right there. Somebody who was amazing at the push-pull action, and they actually only grabbed 3 fingers when they went in for their rip. Thomas Fincher. Amazing rip. And it was, boop, that was his rip. And so depending on your diver's shoulder structures or your shoulder structure yourself, you might have a higher tendency to rip than others. Next thing we're going to talk about that wrist flick. The wrist flick as we swim through, it's that push-pull action. We do not want to swim all the way through as far as we can with those fingertips. We want to swim out in line with the forearms. Swim out in line with the forearms. Boom. Push, pull, boom. And we want to stop at that point in time, because when we stop there, you can actually spread your fingers out. The Chinese are trained to what they call massage the water, all right? And they're not actually massaging the water, but what they're doing, please understand, what's going down underwater with you is quite a bit of air, all right? There's air test tubes going down through the hole with you, so that air goes down with you, and what we do with our fingertips is we spread them and keep them in line, is we're going to break up as many of the larger air bubbles under the water as possible. All right? So we have the flat palms to the water, we have the push-pull action, and then we have the impact split with the straight elbow swim. Now, on the straight elbow swim, we want to make sure we always swim out to the front pockets, no matter what. Straight elbow swim. Notice how the palms are there. Don't bend the elbows on the swim out. Straight elbow swim, front pockets. If you break the scapula plane when you're swimming out, you're endangering your shoulders, and at some point in time, your shoulders may pop out, and then once they pop out once, dislocate, then you have a tendency to dislocate again. Once you dislocate it again, usually they're going to say no more diving for you. All right. Now, once we've swum out towards the front pockets, the body line has to stay tight, and then we hit the save. Core is tight. Now, on your fronts and inwards, we have a pike save action, and we have talked about saves in other videos that you can look up with us. And we also have the knee save for backs and reverses. Knee save. Now, please understand, the positioning of the hand, the timing of the swim out is very important to that sound. But please understand, our feet are much bigger than our hands, and our feet can rip. I know you've heard people foot rip before, but when they foot rip, they do not swim out underwater. So please note that the swim out is not the key to the rip. That positioning and timing is. That flip of the wrist is. The swim out, not necessarily. Because remember, when you're inverted and going in, the force of that water is going to be pulling your arms back into position. You just want to make sure you give them the right direction moving into that position. And if you take and do focus on pulling really hard, what happens is a lot of times your head has an action or tendency to duck, and then your body will change shape. And we don't want to change shape on the entry. But if we swim out really hard, what we do is we create a larger hole than we need for just our head and shoulders to get through. That's all you need to get through. That's what the swim out's for. Open up a hole, an entry for you, just large enough to get your head and shoulders in. So the walls, think about that. You're going in. Goodness gracious, parting the Red Sea when everything moves out. You're parting the sea briefly, just enough for the head and shoulders to go through. And when those walls come back and collapse, you want the walls collapsing and hitting the body. What you don't want is this big, huge, gaping hole, Grand Canyon hole. The body slides through, and now the walls come back. And when the walls come back, they hit each other, and it creates what's called a cease. So that is that up jet spray. A lot of other things that you might see, the rooster tail that shoots off the back sides of the dives, that's mostly head down, a lot of shoulder splash. Shoulder splash. The head gets down, you create that ramp. So, keys to the rip, flat palm, parallel to the water, got to have a good swim out in the right direction, maintain tight body. You might have to save because as far as I know, I'm human and I am not perfect, so I have to save a lot of my dives, especially my age. And it is a quick swim. Used to be able to do the drill right here on the deck. Just practicing. Pool style. That drill works decently if you have stairs that go down into your pool. If you do have those stairs, the athletes can stand up and they can practice palms right on the surface of the water and lock out and then quick, and they can get that feel. We also have what we call partner hand slaps, drills where our partners lock out, partner slaps the hand, and we practice the swim out, all the front pockets. But that is a brief overview of the entry phase of the dive where the rip actually happens. We definitely appreciate your time. Coach Corey here, signing out. Thanks.